Wow, Nathan, I feel like it's been a little bit. I'm excited to be back here with you. We've had some really fun guest artists and guest episodes and a replay of Twombly, and I am pumped to jump into this today. I think it's going to be a really full, meaty episode.
Meaty. Yeah,
Meaty.
No, same here. I do feel like that's a recurring theme of a lot of our standard episodes, whatever that even means at this point. But hey, it's been a while. Can't wait. All right, check.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you got a lot of stuff going on.
That's right.
I wish this was the only thing we were doing outside of making work, but
do you really?
Yeah. Like if I was just painting and recording this, that kind of is what I do. Yeah. I've been working on a lot of different things in the past few months, as you have as well, but you know what I mean.
I do. I definitely do. Well, listen, we've got some exciting quotes to talk about today. We're going to kind of ponder a question. So our main theme is this idea of de-romanticizing the work. And we're going to examine that through the lens of a specific question, which is, what does making art give us even when it doesn't feel good? So we've got 4 main quotes that we're going to discuss, but here's kind of the big picture of what's coming. So thing 1, making is hard. That's the de-romanticization part of the equation. In spite of it being hard, it still gives us a lot.
Always.
So we're going to unpack 3 things that it gives us. It slows our thinking to get to the idea. Mm-hmm. It reminds us that making in and of itself is thinking, and that making nourishes us in ways that we can't even comprehend. So with that, you said you were going to whisper.
Yeah. It's going to
keep mixing that in. It's great. So with that in mind, our first quote comes from Hugo Winder Lind.
It's not like it feels good all the time. I think that's the big thing. It doesn't feel good all the time to paint or make art. Like really exhausting, especially now with the expectation on you to become a sort of multifaceted, creative individual rather than just doing one thing.
And there's a lot in there, Nathan.
Definitely.
There's just a lot in there. I've definitely been in the first half of that currently the last few months. Nothing just feels very good at this point. And it's absolutely more exhausting right now than it's been. And it's just, I don't know, it's just this funk I've been in of having, I think, created so much over a year's period of time, like really creating new ideas and new things and working it out, that all of a sudden I'm in this point where I haven't figured it out, but it's still moving, but nothing feels good now.
Yeah.
And things did feel really good for years. So now I'm back in that moment of not forcing, but just trying to keep motivated and fighting apathy to keep creating and moving. I totally get what he's saying in that second part, that when you have these expectations of being and doing something and being a creative individual rather than just doing one thing, like feels like there are so many other things pulling at you in those moments too.
It's funny because we are on different cycles of the creative process. I remember, so when you told me that, I had called you, we were talking whatever last week.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, it's flowing. Like a lot of things are finally, coming together. And I'm really excited about where things are at and where they're headed. And things are just, they're coming together in a way that they haven't, for a while.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice if you'd at least spent 5 seconds being like, hey, that's awesome, man. But
no, it's because my brain was doing this. My brain was literally flipping you off like I'm doing in the video. If you're watching YouTube, you can see me. This is what my brain was doing.
No, I felt it. I felt it over the phone. You went straight to like, well, not so much here.
No, I did. I mean, that's the crazy thing, right? It's like, you want to be excited for your friends and your colleagues and your peers in the moments when they're in the flow or successful. But when you're on the opposite end of it in the moment, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like it's that battle, because I think V, who we had on a few episodes ago, we were chatting about a little clip of a video that she had put up on Instagram. And it was of a guy running in a marathon, and he couldn't make he hit the breaking point physically, and he's just collapsing on the ground, and runners are passing him. People are just going by, and he keeps getting up and falling up and falling up and falling, and his legs, and then 2 runners grab him and put him over their shoulders and start running with him. And his legs are just kind of dragging, and I was in tears, and I'm like, gosh, yeah, this is it. And she's like, we need more kindness like this in life. And that's the same thing we need to like be doing to our artist comrades in the moment, whether they're struggling or if they're successful. We still need to put that arm around them and just, either help them along the road or go, oh, I'm so happy for you. Because once I got the phone with you, I was like, dude, I'm so pumped he's in a flow. This is great for him. He needs this right now.
You're reminding me of a principle of recovery and in life, but just this idea of there are certain things that we don't get to keep unless we continue to give them away. And this could be one of those things, right? Like,
of course.
I mean, look, if I'm running a marathon and I'm shooting for a time, I mean, that dude's going to be okay. It's not like we're on the battlefield and, we got to drag him back to safety. Right. Like, he's going to live. I can't say for sure that I would be the person that would put somebody over my shoulder in that context. But when somebody is, legitimately struggling, like, the more that we can offer up, the more that we can share, with the people that we are in communion with, that we're in community with in this game, like, the more you share, the more you get, the more you give, the more there is, whatever, insert your cliche here, but they're true. Like, that's something that, I mean, even just by virtue of talking about it with somebody else. And this is something, back to that conversation, it's not as though I could just say like, well, hey, have you thought about like just having everything work all of a sudden?
Right.
There's only so much you can transmute to somebody else, but there is something to be said for, just doing what we can to lift other people up and offer what we can, in that moment, which oftentimes comes back to perspective. I mean, don't you find that that's something that you end up offering, whether it be to your mentees or just, other artists that you're in conversation and in communication with, is just a version of perspective, because that's really what we need in those moments. Right. Is, what's right in front of us feels like all there is, when in actuality, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, I think perspective is the point to be made there, because as I was watching that video of the marathon, I had 2 different perspectives in my head. One was, oh man, isn't that amazing that they lifted this guy up and helped him across the finish line? But then my other perspective, after I sat for a few seconds, was, hold on. He knows exactly what he's getting into. He knows that he may finish or may not finish, or his body may just be giving out and he can't finish the race. And, I was thinking, well, everybody's in the same game with him. They're all on the same level. They're all doing the same thing. And so should the other racers stop to help him, and then it then hurts what they're trying to accomplish in that race?
Yeah.
Or should they just keep going? Because even as an artist, right, there's multiple times where it's like, hey, we can't stop and help you and pick you up and bring you along with us, because maybe you, the artist, aren't putting enough work in the studio or outside the studio or networking. Like, there are 2 perspectives.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of artists that I've been around, who are just like, come on, let's go. We can do this. We can do this. And I'm like, you're not doing anything. Like, you're not doing yourself any favors by not spending time in the studio when you have it, by not experimenting and growing your work, by not getting yourself out there and going to openings and shows and trying to meet people and network. Like, I can't be the person that just brings you along and does that for you.
That's right. Yeah.
So perspective is the grandiose thing here to think about in those moments.
I want to speak to the highlight reel illusion that is social media.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get comments like this as well. It looks like you're having so much fun. Oh, I wish I could just be a fly on the wall. And in that context, it's difficult to respond in a way that's, it's just, hey, thanks, but the real response is, this isn't real.
Yeah.
It's real. What you're seeing are true clips, but those are highlights. That's the most visually interesting 7 seconds from 7 hours worth of standing around, trying things that don't work, being discouraged, throwing stuff across the studio, quitting and firing myself and hiring myself back, 10 minutes later.
Yep.
And it's, I don't know about you. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but I personally, I feel I've got some guilt around even saying that, because I am so overwhelmed with gratitude to be able to, for it to be hard, to be able to suffer in the studio, understanding that that's a gift that a lot of people don't have, so it's kind of keeping one foot planted in both camps. Like, this is all, even when it sucks, even when it's terrible, it's still awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a bad day at the studio is still better than, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Almost anything else. And it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's both of those things.
I love it and I'm tired of it, but I need it. Like, at the end of the day, we need eyeballs. We need eyeballs, period. As artists, we need viewers. We need
at least two if you're going to make
at least
art.
two.
Well, at least one. You can go with one.
At least
probably.
One other. Yeah, you included as two. But it's like, yeah, it drives me crazy, but I know it's necessary today too. And so it's really hard to not get wrapped up in so many things, especially with that highlight reel. Like the last video I put up of a work that I did, a diptych. I mean, it was like probably 3 weeks worth of work that I edited down to less than 2 minutes. And, I'm cutting out Mandy coming in to the studio to say hi and me stopping working for a while. There's all those moments in the day, my studio assistant Cash, like walking through the painting when I'm trying to glue something down, or just moments of me standing there and just looking at the stuff. I record everything, so there's so much to cut out. But yeah, if I just played the raw video, you'd have 50 hours of me standing and looking and trying to figure out what to do next. Then you'd have, 10 hours of actual painting.
Back to that idea of perspective, one of the things that I tell myself when I'm conscious about what I'm telling myself, which when I'm not is almost always something negative. It's a whole other conversation. But when I'm intentional about what I'm telling myself, one of the things that I really try to keep at the forefront of my thinking is that it doesn't have to feel good in the moment for it to work. And just because it feels good in the moment doesn't mean that it's going to work.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a natural association between those two things, because a lot of things in life kind of line up that way, right? Like, hey, it felt good doing it and it turned out well. I think that in the studio, that's where it's just different, like so it becomes a matter of really sort of unpairing or decoupling that natural association. And the perspective comes in when I realize, just because it doesn't feel good right now does not mean that something that happened in the studio today won't be something great or won't work, even if it's not working with this piece or in this particular context. Marks were made, material was processed, like things happened. And so there's just that perspective of like, when I walk out of the studio at night, to just remind myself, hey, it's okay. A lot of it just comes to being easier on ourselves, or I'll speak in the first person, being easier, on myself, where when you're ambitious and when you hold yourself to a high standard, that can create a dynamic where you're only going to, feel good at the end very occasionally, as opposed to associating productivity or whatever good things happening with a step in the right direction, right? A brick was laid. We don't know what we're building. We don't know which wall this is, but we laid some bricks today. And we might come back tomorrow and tear them all down. But even then, now we'll know where to build the wall tomorrow.
I don't feel like I have a whole lot of time when I'm working where I feel really good.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly don't. I think the majority of my time is confusion, really seeking out things that aren't currently in my head, trying to fight with myself and what I think could work versus what I've seen work. I feel like my head's all over the place. And when I'm feeling really good, I feel like I'm creating really bad work, honestly. Sure. When I'm really like, oh yeah, this is really working, I feel like I come back the next day or the next week and look at the work and go, God, it's freaking horrible.
Right.
That's really bad. And that's that last painting that I had put up, I was telling you about. Remember, I created a painting and then I stepped back and went, how in the world did I just time hop back to 2013?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I was mind blown and I was in the flow, man. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. This is working so good. And then I stepped back and went, I just lost 13 years in that moment of really feeling great.
Yeah.
And so then I painted over the whole thing and started again. But it's like, it's just a weird dynamic. The artist's mind is such a crazy, weird dynamic that we're all different. We all operate in different ways.
Yeah.
But art is not going to feel good all the time, everybody. It's just not.
And we're not going to understand it most of the time. I would argue that there was some part of you that, for whatever reasons that will remain unknown, just needed to do that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that some component of going back 13 years needed to sort of resurface for you to work through and have that come out another way in
I know
2026.
That. Check this. So the poem that I was painting from was from the year 2000 and that I wrote in 2000. Right. And
I'm sorry. I always,
you
always
were
think about
year 2000. Conan O'Brien.
The year 2000. So good. Right.
So my mind was back in that time with my buddy Micah on the beach in Santa Barbara, and the poem, we're out in the ocean at night watching the moonlight, talking about his sister Heidi that we lost, I think 2 years prior to that. And we were discussing that in tears and just talking, just this life moment that was just beautiful in the water in Santa Barbara with the moonlight. I mean, it's just an incredible night. So I was kind of there. And then what I realized is I painted kind of forms of a painting that I painted of he and I in college for a class. And somehow all of that brain space, right, couldn't leave that moment. But what I realized later when I painted over it, if I hadn't just gone with it and worked through that, I wouldn't have gotten to where I would have gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I spent a ton of time working on those layers that ended up becoming just nothing. But it worked my mind to the place and a frenzy that I needed to be in when I started over.
You reminded me of something else that's a really good anchor for perspective, which is to look at, I'm looking at pieces in my little podcasting studio here. You look back at, that's a great example right there that I'm looking at. You look back at finished work that ultimately did resolve itself and work as well as it needed to at that time for it to be, I don't know about you, but I can remember specifically like, yep, that part right there, I was super frustrated about and wish it hadn't happened. But ultimately, it did get resolved and it did work out. And it ended, in case of the one I'm looking at, it ended up being the best part of the finished piece.
Yep.
So the point is, we're not always going to understand it. We're usually not going to understand it, and that's okay.
Well, and I think a lot of that goes into what Mark Bradford is about to tell us as well.
Segue.
I still don't know how this is going to hang. I still don't even know. To me, I like it with the tacks in it, but, well, maybe bright color tacks. I'm not sure how it's going to hang. I just thought to put it in a box, send it down there, stack it up and put it in a box. I noticed that my art practice is very detail, labor intensive. And I think that that's a way of slowing myself down so that I can hear myself think. So I can hear the voices a little bit more quiet. So I can hear maybe the decision that might come through that's a little less large. That quieter voice has sometimes the more interesting idea, if I can get to it.
I've got like tears forming in my eyes right now because when I hear Mark Bradford talk about art, I just go to a different place. I honestly do. He just takes me to a place that is so different and so beautiful and so wonderful. And, having seen so much of his work in person, everything he said there, right? That's kind of what I was talking about in my own way with not feeling good about the work, just kind of spending a lot of time listening and working through. And it's like, just that sentence, the quieter voice has sometimes the more interesting idea if I can get to it. Damn. Preach, Mark.
I don't know. I mean, he's on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, same.
we will. He's on an ever growing list of just icons where we're like, we're going to do a Bradford episode, but we got to do it right.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is not that for today's purposes, but I mean, the thing that struck me, the opening line is what really struck me. And it's not what he said, it's how he says it. I still don't know how this is going to hang. I don't even know, because I have these logistical frustrations and ponderings all the time, especially with the materials that I'm working with that aren't meant for art, that have never been combined, together for any other reason. It creates a lot of logistical challenges of like, okay, cool. I've got a piece that I like as it exists right now, with part of it screwed to the wall and part of it like, how is this going to this going to be transported? How is this going to exist in space? How is it going to be installed? All of these things, because I ask that question all the time, but the way that I ask it is typically very different. It's much more like, I still know how this is going to hang. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
It's
whereas Mark's just like, I just don't even know.
Yeah, it's okay.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll just ship it in a box. I'm just going to stack them all and ship it and go, here you go. Here's a little thing of tacks if you want to use those. Let's use the bright colored ones.
Right. Let them, here it is. Let them figure it out. It's numbered, it's lettered. Here's where everything goes. You and I talk about this a lot, when we're on the phone and talking about our work and things. And it's, the general thing that I'm usually telling you is just make it and figure it out later. Get those ideas out, just make the damn thing, and we'll figure everything out later. Shipping, logistics, hanging, sitting, like all that stuff. And I'm telling artists all the time, because we can get held back by the logistics. Yeah, we can. Trust me, some of you artists understand that. Some, you're not there yet, but there will be a point in time when you're experimenting and working on things and you start thinking about logistics. How can it ship? How will it be able to be put together? No, just make it, figure that out later. Then you get on the phone with your 10 art friends and you guys have a powwow and you figure out, how in the world are we going to ship this or hang it or put it up? I mean, that's why I love seeing so many different artists work when I go into museums. Yeah. Right. And I'm walking around and I'm looking at this artist, I'm looking at that artist, and I'm going, okay, just hang it from the ceiling by a single hook and just let it drape on the floor. Yeah. Boom. Do whatever you want to do. And it's okay if you can see the seams. It's okay if you can see the screws, or, I mean, that's where I have to actively short circuit my perfectionism, is wanting it to, like just being okay with like, hey, show your work. Like, yep, this is how this is held together. This is how this exists. This is, this is not one big, 8 by 14 foot, piece. And that's okay. I mean, you look at Bradford's work, almost all of it, you can see those things. You can see where, how it was certainly shipped modular, this 20 by 50 foot piece it's not just one that didn't come in a 20 by 50 foot crate. And I think it's funny that idea, and that's one of the things that you definitely helped me with when I was in one of your mentees, and that idea served me very well for a long time. I'm having to reconsider that at this point, as I'm starting to make work that I know, like I'm preparing, for some work that's going to be going to Spain this summer, and just thinking about, all right, some of these things are going to hang outside. There are some things that can be resolved at the end, and some things that I actually legitimately have to think through, because I can't, completely disassemble it. Anyway, chicken or egg, at some point we're gonna have to figure this out. Is it now or is it later? Is a real question.
But you have artists like Sam Gilliam, right, who give you permission to hang it every which way possible, right? His piece goes into a museum and it hangs potentially the way it was supposed to, but it's made to his drape paintings. They're made to be hung in multiple angles, different sides, different corners, and it changes every single time. Right. And then Len Sui, right? Another great example of somebody whose work on a wall can take on so many different forms. And he even at times is like telling the museum, right, installers, like, what do you think? Yeah. It's like, and then he's letting them kind of decide this fold here and this fold here and this hangs here, and I don't know. I love that about work. I love when art can do that.
Well, and it's hilarious that you said that, because I was literally just thinking about Elana Tsui, and that's confidence in the work too. I mean, that's how confident do you have to be in the work that you're like, yeah, whichever way this hangs, it's going to do what I intended for it to do. It's going to speak maybe in a way that was better than I intended. That's beautiful. I didn't really add much there. You can cut that part out if you want. Okay. So I got something else on Mark here. So Ty, he talks about, I'm going to reread this part of this quote. I noticed that my art practice is very detailed, labor intensive, and I think that that's a way of slowing myself down so I can hear myself think. Yes. I pondered on this for a long time as we were preparing as I was preparing for today's episode. So we talk a lot about sitting and listening, which is extremely necessary and valuable, but movement is also an excellent way to quiet the mind, especially when it's repetitive labor, which I do a lot of. It's a way of giving the monkey mind a task to focus on. All right, hey, just do this, right? The monkey mind's I'm doing something. I got to figure out what to do with what do I do with my hands? I got to figure out something to do. Let's get that out of the way. So when I sit, I listen and I write. When I'm moving, I'm listening and I'm talking back out loud. This is something I've fully embraced. I realized, so I've got a new studio assistant who's been helping me out. He's awesome. And just part-time. Yeah, guys, it's like 8 hours a week. Okay, I don't have a full-time studio assistant, just to be clear. But he's awesome, and he's been a great sounding board. And, he's kind of gotten a good sense of my flow and sort of, way of being. And I just told him, like, listen, because I've had other people help me at different times in the past. And he's like, yeah, I've just kind of realized that the first 30 minutes of every day is going to be us walking around and you talking to get to a point where you know what you want for us to do or what you want for me to do. And I kind of just need a spotter, like just somebody to be there, while I'm externally processing. They realize nobody else has to be in the room. Like, it's totally okay just to talk to myself. And so I do a lot of that. Obviously I can't be writing and capturing ideas in my lab notes or in my journal when I'm physically doing other things, but I can absolutely work through these ideas. And there's something about, if you're an external processor like I am, and I think the way that you are as well, probably we both are. That's why this whole podcasting thing, works. But it's something that it's very valuable, and you don't need to have somebody else, there. So oftentimes I just need to hear myself say it out loud. And it's like, oh, okay. And then I can listen to the material that I'm working on. I can listen to what I'm doing and be in audible conversation with the work in real time.
Yeah. Well, I think hey, everybody, just wanted to take a quick second and ask you to leave us a review or a comment. It would absolutely help us in the podcast if you would do that, and take a second and share it with a friend too. Time stops when you're busy working on your work. Like, it's almost as if, right? Let me rewind a little bit. When you're sitting and listening and just looking at work, you're completely kind of focused on that moment, and your brain is completely focused on what you're looking at. When you're busy working, your brain moves into a different function. It's like driving. Right? Those times when I forget what the name of it is for, it's a psychological term for when something so important is happening, your brain protects you. So you drive 4 hours somewhere, you don't even realize you drove 4 hours. Like you're kind of just gone in your head. Next thing you know, you're there and you're like, I don't remember anything. But your brain knows how important it is to keep you alive in that moment that it's focusing, even though you're Same thing happens when you're making art. You just kind of disappear into something that in your head is so important that your brain is firing all over the place. And so for me, it's like when I'm really working, especially like when I'm really focused sewing or working with fibers in this moment where I'm just completely in on this. And yeah, that's like so many things come to me in a way that's completely different than when I'm just sitting and listening. And I think that's what Mark is saying in that moment of the way of slowing himself down so he can see himself, he can hear himself think.
Well, and that's where the quieter voice, when he says the quieter voice has sometimes the more interesting idea if I can get to it. And the only way the quieter voice has an opportunity to break through is if our default louder voice is out of the way.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, Rick Rubin talks about that a lot, talks about those moments a lot, right? Like even when you're busy, you're keeping your mind open to ideas and to new things. And you need to be finding those ways to get to those ideas. And he says, if I can get to it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's if we can, well, yeah, let's figure out those ways that work for us so that we can get to those ideas.
Well, and that's where having a studio practice that involves, or creative practice, whatever that looks like, for you, let's turn this into a tactical tip, but tactical tip. It's, we need a sounder for that, but it's to have some version of a routine where, there are some days where you leave off and you just ran out of time or energy or whatever, and you know exactly where you're going to pick up. Mm-hmm. But there's way more days, for me anyway, where it's like, all right, let's survey the chaos of the day before. Let's see what we got. Let's look at all of our babies with fresh eyes and see what's what. But to the idea of routine, moving things around, cleaning up the space, setting things in different light, just getting your hands on things, that in and of itself sort of, primes the pump for the work that's going to follow, I think.
Yeah.
Some people think I'm working, but they don't realize I'm thinking. You lose a lot of time thinking. Might as well be producing or making something while you're thinking.
What do you mean by thinking?
Well, what is happening? What am I concerned about? What would I like to accomplish or do today or tomorrow? And how am I going to do it? And in order to do it, what do I have to exclude or avoid? Because Paris is a very noisy, busy, confusing, chaotic city. And I live right in the middle of it, and I'd like to still have a advantage of being in a nice, cultural and beautiful and interesting place, but also to keep my peace of mind and quiet too. So I have to find a way to do that, and I can sit still and quietly and think and practically solve all these problems while I'm having a coffee. To be alive is to sort of discover. So hang in there, because you never know what the next discovery might be. Hang in there.
Did you feel like she was talking to you?
Yes.
Right? Isn't that, to me, that's like such a special quality when you can watch somebody in an interview, especially for me with artists, and I feel like they're literally talking to me. And I feel like she was very purposeful in that conversation to kind of reach artists out there through it.
I just looked it up. She's 91 today.
Oh, wow.
This isn't her birthday, but as of today, she was born in 1934.
Yeah.
I don't know how old that video is, but she was certainly in her, mid 80s when she said that. My point in sharing that is that when artists who have been making work for, 6-7 decades share wisdom, that's real. Yeah. That's real wisdom.
Absolutely.
That's who we need to be listening to. So when she says, hang in there, you're like, thanks, art grandma.
Seriously. And think of this line, Nathan, to be alive is to sort of discover.
Yeah.
Like she's offering that to every artist out there. She's saying, hey, you need to realize to be alive is to discover. So hang in there. You don't know what that next discovery might be. Keep going, artist. Keep going. Hang in there. You have a lot of time, or a very short time. Like we don't know. I was sitting in a coffee shop today and I was writing some poetry while my studio assistant was getting groomed at the groomer. And I was writing some poems on death and just thinking about like time and how much we either don't have or how much we do have.
Yeah.
And so hearing Sheila say this, and I was thinking about these quotes that we were going over today as well, because they've been in my head, but just thinking of that, like to be alive is to discover. We should be living in a state of discovery every day that we're walking and breathing. And I think all the things that we've kind of gone through today so far is kind of alluding to those, like busy or quiet, listening or working. Like all of it should be wrapped up in discovery somehow. I'm trying not to laugh because I was reading our reviews on Spotify and Apple the other day for the podcast, and somebody actually put a review up. It was like a 3 out of 5 stars that we were getting too emotional and whiny. And here I am today being very emotional and whiny.
Are you going to leave this in?
Yeah, I'm leaving it in.
You brought this up before, and I remember saying something to the effect of, I mean, show me the work that is produced from unfeeling.
Yeah.
We could probably find some. We don't need to list examples for today's purpose.
Right. I know. Just like, hey, I'm an emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. All of my mentees can attest to that, or artists around me, or my friends. Like, I'm just emotional.
Yeah.
Like, I love life. And I want to live it to the fullest, in the heartbreak and in the joy and in the loss and in like everything that's wrapped up in life, whether it's painful or horrible or beautiful. Like, I'm still alive in it, and I'm discovering something amidst all of that. To bring it back to Sheila, all of those moments are giving me discovery. And that is beautifully awful. It's that tension, right? There's just a lot of tension wrapped up in that.
Was it Thoreau who talked about sucking the marrow out of life? I actually know it is because I just looked it up. I just brought it up in a way that made it seem like I actually had access to that in my brain.
Yeah, it's from Walden. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the point is, it's everything. I do love bone marrow. Typically don't consume it that way exactly, but it's all of it.
Right.
It's everything that's in there. It's not just the parts that we like. It's not just back to life. If we're going to experience it, we got to experience all of it. If we're going to enjoy the highs, we got to roll through the lows and discover all of the above. The part of this quote that I wanted to spend some more time on too, it's so funny because shout out to the interviewer, because when he asked the question, what do you mean by thinking? At first listen, my first thought was like, what a dumb question. But what followed, so great intuitive question, because what followed was incredible. Mm-hmm. You know, she lists off, well, what's happening? What am I concerned about? And the part that I want to zero in on, and in order to do it, what do I have to exclude or avoid? That's huge. I mean, we've talked about this before because this is a reoccurring theme, but like, you know, just asking that question, what's in my way? And am I really willing to, you know, remove it? So if we're really about the art life, as David Lynch calls it, we have to audit our time, our resources, our energy, all of it. And we have to be willing to take a scalpel to remove anything that doesn't belong, that isn't in alignment with our values and what we want to do with however much time we have here. I was talking to a friend of mine who I'm not going to name. I don't think he listens to the podcast, but just in case, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but this was last week. And this is a friend of mine who he's a man child. He's in his early 40s. He's got a lot of flexibility with his time. And he, like me, is very prone to picking up new hobbies. So he went on a date and went bowling and bowled like a 150 or something. And he texts me, he's like, I love bowling. Cut to the next day, he texts me a picture of his custom bowling ball with his initials monogrammed on it. You know what I mean?
Feather in the middle?
No, but I did reply with a Big Lebowski meme with you know, Jesus. Mm-hmm. So good. John Turturro in that
great
role.
film.
Unmatched. But so this is somebody who he's got a lot of creative aspirations and he's very talented, but he hasn't to this point been able to execute consistently on any one of the 4 or 5 things that he could have really been amazing at and still could. I'm not going to say that ship has sailed completely, but I just asked him, we're close. And I said, imagine how that short film you're working on, imagine how the soundtrack that you've been the projects, the unfinished projects that you have in the works right now, like, is becoming a good bowler going to get you closer to what you aspire to be? So the question really comes down to, do my actions match my goals?
Yeah.
And if not, it's okay. But one of those two things needs to be adjusted. Either we need to increase our actions to be consistent with what achieving our goals is going to require.
Yeah.
Or we need to just lower the goal. Because when those things aren't in alignment, that's a great recipe for a lot of regret.
Mm-hmm.
When they are in alignment, that's a great recipe for fulfillment and peace of mind and being okay with whatever we are saying yes and no to. Every time we say yes to one thing, we're in this moment, you and I are saying yes to recording this podcast. Yep. That means we are, by extension, saying no to everything else that we could be doing with our time in this moment.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of things. There are a lot of things, an infinite number of things that any one of us could be doing at any moment in time. So whatever we're choosing to invest our energy into, it better be consistent with our overreaching goals. And I realize I'm using sort of some, achievement driven vernacular here, but replace that with whatever's true for you, dear listener. But those two things need to be in alignment. They need to be in alignment. And so if we are serious about making authentic work that we are putting into the world, that we want to be seen, that we want to have, an impact of some kind. Again, fill in the blank with whatever's true for you. But if that's real, if that's a real desire, if that's a real, compulsion that we have to do, then it means, to Sheila's point, that we're going to have to exclude and avoid a lot of other things. And a lot of the things that need to be excluded or avoided they're not inherently bad things. There's nothing wrong with bowling. Bowling's cool, I guess. But how much time do you want to put into the things that aren't necessities, that aren't in full alignment with our true calling, is the question that we have to ask.
Yeah, I've been thinking through that a lot in the last probably month and a half, as I haven't been making much art as much as I want to, just kind of being in that funk of figuring out where I want to go next with things. But I could either sit around in that time and just be frustrated with myself and upset and not do anything, or I can be proactive in things that keep my thinking focused on what I'm doing. So I've literally been pitching literary agents for my novel that I wrote a few years back, and rewriting my query letter and rewriting my synopsis and just doing all kinds of research and things. But in that whole moment, I'm still thinking about the work. I'm in my studio. I'm looking at work. I'm thinking through, I'm making notes. I'm writing down ideas and things in the process of the other thing. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I've also been, as we've talked about, you and I personally, I've been building an app from all the curriculum from my mentorship program. But because I've been constantly in that and getting stories from artists who've been in my program, and then thinking about stories while I'm building in and writing things for my curriculum, it's still keeping me focused on those things, because it'd be really easy for me to spend 3 or 4 hours a day watching films, watching movies, and just brain wasting. You know what I mean? And just being frustrated. I don't know if there's anything more easy to do today than to just end up streaming film and TV for hours on end when you don't feel like doing anything.
I mean, doom scrolling is probably even easier.
Those things I would kind of throw that into, or just doom scrolling for 2 hours and then your brain is drained. Right. And you don't have any energy to even focus or think about anything. Because usually if you're an artist and you're doom scrolling, you're not really, doom scrolling fail videos for 3 hours. You're kind of doom scrolling the artist on your feed and what they're doing and the accomplishments they may be making, and watching their highlight reels and thinking that they've got 50 years up on you because of their highlight reels, when they might be in the same place you're in. And then you don't want to make work for a week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of danger in those things. I guess what I'm kind of getting at in that is that I don't want to miss the discovery. So even in the moments where I'm not really able to just jump into my work, I'm trying to find ways to be creative outside of it that still keep my mind in a creative mode.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
100%. Even just considering that idea of discovery itself. I referenced this a while back. I read a book a few months ago called The Explorer's Gene, and I've referenced that a couple of times in previous episodes. But one of the biggest takeaways that has really stuck with me from that book was how 99% of every discovery was off course at any given moment. And that all of the detours, all of the mistakes, all the fails, all the things that didn't go well were necessary steps to figure out ultimately what did work, or what was going to get Explorer from point A to point B. That's super relevant. It's just to, again, back to perspective, that idea of it's okay if I'm not on course right now. Yeah. Realizing that the next piece that I make that is linear in its creation, where A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, and we're done, will be the first.
Yeah.
And I say that acknowledging that it probably will never happen. And I'm not even sure that I would want it to if it could. Those detours are necessary, you know? And so when we're in those low moments, here I go talking about feelings again. When we're in those low moments, just reminding ourselves that this is part of the journey.
Yeah.
All right, let's listen to our next quote, Ty.
Yep.
Why do I still make things? My sense is I make things because it nourishes me. I make the work because the work is filling. Now, the work doesn't do everything. The studio doesn't do everything, but it does a lot.
I love that. I freaking love that.
Well, you should. I mean, you're the one that added it to our list today.
Yeah, I saw that because V had put it up today on Instagram, and I was like, yeah. Because I think as I was working on my app, I was reading through a bunch of my curriculum, and I was reading through notes that I had made about my own frustrations and the moments where I've just been like, why in the hell am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? Those hard artist moments. I was at the Kurt Vonnegut Museum in Indianapolis just last month with my buddy Jeremy when we were there. And I sent you a picture that they had inside this glass box. And it was a box, like an old shoe box. It was just torn and kind of ripped up on the edges. I'll put a picture of it up in the YouTube video for this cast. And it was his rejection box from all the rejection letters that he had. And he had it written on there. I think it said rejections. And I just broke. I was just in tears. And I was just like, you know, here I'm in a room that is celebrating one of my literary heroes. And the fact that his rejection box was right there. So I'm in the room based on his success. And I'm staring at all the rejections in a box. Right? It's like there's just a moment of hope. Not that I don't have hope in my work or myself as an artist, but there's just to be in that room with one of your heroes and just go, it was a journey for them too. It just feels good. Feels good. You feel like you're part of that class because you're like, yeah, I'm getting rejected too, bro. No, it's like, I just wanted to wrap my arms around the first Vonnegut photo I saw and just like welcome into my arms and go, yeah, I'm just like you, man. And so, man, just why do I still make things? Well, because it nourishes me. That's why I'm doing this. And that's what I tell myself in those moments where I just wanted to throw the towel in and go, I can't do this anymore. It's too heartbreaking when the hard things happen. It is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But then I go, man, the next morning I wake up, I go, God, I want to get back in the studio so fast because it nourishes me. The work is filling. Now, I love that he follows that up with it doesn't do everything, but it sure does a lot.
Side note, I just resolved a question I was trying to answer earlier, and I just need to make a note. So this would be great. Consider this exhibit A of when
Nathan's brain.
Yeah, it's a dark place. You don't want to visit at night. But exhibit A of while we're doing other things, ideas come to us. Things get resolved even when we're not thinking about them actively. I wanted to ask you, because I know Jeremy a little bit, having hung out with him a couple times.
Yeah.
And I know he's a very, deeply feeling, heart-centered individual who probably wasn't as affected emotionally by that specifically. How did he respond in that moment when you were, are tears just welling up? Let's talk about feelings. Are tears just welling up, or are we streaming?
Oh no, I was
it visibly
streaming.
obvious that you were okay? Yeah,
no,
I don't respond in that moment.
I don't care if people see me.
No,
tears streaming. You know what I mean?
I know you're not.
No, he was
ashamed to be crying. I'm curious, how did he?
Jeremy was around the corner.
Okay,
he was around the corner reading. The museum's fabulous. It was like we spent quite a bit of time in there because we had to read every little typed letter that he wrote to other people or politicians or whatever. I mean, it was just insane. I highly recommend it. If you're ever in Indianapolis, you cannot miss the Vonnegut Museum. It's incredible. He was around the corner, but I stood there for a while. And I remember when I speak out loud, I've talked about this before at museums and things. I'm not one to hide my emotion. And I'm looking at this glass case has a bunch of things, and I come around the corner and I go, his rejection slips. And it even says like, be quiet, like in the room, kind of like a library in the room. But I'm going, oh my gosh. And I'm looking for Jeremy. Where are you going to show you this? Cause he knows he's my buddy. So we talk about this stuff quite a bit. So when I waited until he came around the corner, and I was going, gotta come see this. Look at this is insane. And he was like, wow, he knew what it meant for me. So it was a pretty powerful moment.
I want to zero in on the last part of that quote.
Yep.
The studio doesn't do everything, but it does a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just reflecting on how I don't understand exactly where. Let me rephrase that. Let me start over. I don't understand exactly what it does, what that nourishment is, or even why I need it. I just know that I do. Mm-hmm. I know that it's significant. And I know this because when I don't get it, I don't feel whole. I'm a little twitchy. I'm a little off. If I go more than a couple days without making something, and as we've discussed many times before, we're not always in our studio. We're not always in the optimal place to do what we're doing on a regular basis, but there's always a scaled down, travel light version of writing about the work that can be done. But I just know, I don't understand it. I don't need to understand it. The only thing that I need to know for sure is that I need it and that it does something for me that nothing else does.
Yeah. Well, that's why I call it my sanctuary, my place of worship, and my playground, because it is a very spiritual place that evokes depth and worship for me. And it's also my playground. It's a place where I can be 4 years old with not a care in the world, and I can just have absolute freedom and play. Like it's really a massive combination of both those things. So you think about it, if that's in my brain space and personality as an artist, that it means that for me, that if I'm spending too much time away from it, you can only imagine what is missing. And I think that's something to really think about. Now, that doesn't mean, right, studio is where you make art. Doesn't matter if it's a loft, a building, a warehouse, a bedroom, a bathroom, living room that has to be cleaned up, every day when everybody comes home. It's just, that's your place you make work. So think about when you're not there and you're not in it, what is missing for you?
This is an idea, Ty, that I've been reflecting on a lot lately, which is beyond what does the process and what does the studio practice do for me, or what's the point? It's back to this idea of something that we've discussed, many times before, and certainly will again, which is, what is the work about? And I've been thinking a lot about, what the studio has taught me, what art has taught me, and just the benefit. I guess this is maybe as close as I can get to putting my finger on what that nourishment is, or one version of the nutrients, that come from making art. But it's the way that our work continues to tell us what it's about versus the other way around. I think that's a little bit about what Bradford's referring to. That's the small voice.
Yeah.
The big voice might be, here's what I'm trying to do with this. Here's what I'm trying to say. Great. There's a place for that. That's a reasonable starting point. But ultimately, the work tells us what it's about. And for me, understanding how my experience with recovery and my personal transformation as an individual, going from an addict that almost, lost my life and or my freedom to what my life is today, it's been so nourishing to be able to really understand something that I didn't at first. I didn't know. I didn't have a grand plan to say what I am now attempting to say with my work, but the work told me. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing that I'm, so thankful for.
Well, so a couple days ago, it might have been last week, you put up an Instagram video that for me was extremely powerful. And I know for a number of our friends, artist friends, it was very powerful. And it was just a short reel where you were celebrating your 24th year, right?
Mm-hmm.
24th year of recovery, which congratulations, just a beautiful thing. And you were sharing your story and your process with work and really the nourishment that it's brought you in this journey that is now at 24 years of fight and as well, not just with fight, but of giving back the way that I've watched you and observed you give back in that community, in the recovery community with numerous addicts of different levels. Just been incredible to watch. And knowing you now with that and knowing your work and process, to me, it's just an absolutely deeply motivating thing to see all of those things kind of come to fruition in one, and that nourishment being found in the studio, but also recognizing that it doesn't do everything. Because I know your life outside the studio too, there's a lot of purpose and intention. And so you have to have that balance of all of those things, knowing the studio doesn't do everything. There's things outside of it that does, but the studio sure does a lot.
Yeah, preach.
But I highly suggest everybody go to Nathan's Instagram and watch that reel.
All right, so let's wrap this up. We talked about how making is hard, how it's not always fun. We talked about, in spite of that, it also gives us a lot. It slows our thinking to get to the idea. Is making in and of itself is the thinking, and that it nourishes us in ways that we can't even comprehend. Any closing thoughts, Ty? Anything you want to add? Do you feel complete? Any other feelings you want to share?
No, I think I've shared quite a bit of feelings today. I'm gonna go lay on the couch outside and cry the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So here's some questions to consider, dear listener. What is your relationship with your creative process?
Yeah,
it's a really good thing to ponder. It's a really good thing to, back to that idea of perspective. It's a really useful thing to consider and really sit with. What's my relationship? Not just with the work, not just with the result. What's my relationship with my creative process? And how can we embed more perspective into the here and now? How can we remove ourselves from the frustration, all the moments when things aren't going well, to keep perspective, to keep that high level view of, but it's going somewhere. I was thinking earlier, just as an encouraging thought, I suppose. But if you've ever completed anything that you were happy with, even just once, you know that there is something on the other side of discovery. We don't need to know what. We don't need to know when. We probably don't. But something is on the other side of discovery.
We would love to also hear from you out there, artists, and just share with us any of your own experiences with making and thinking. Let us know, what are your processes? What are the ways that you kind of navigate these things that we talked about? Are you living in a state of discovery, or is it something that you're really kind of struggling with in your work? We'd love to hear from you for sure. And as we always say, just make art. And we're going to leave you with Sheila Hicks again, just kind of giving you a little bit of encouragement to finish your week with. So we hope you have a great day and go make some art.
To be alive is to sort of discover. So hang in there. because you never know what the next discovery might be. Hang in there.
Hey, pardon the interruption. We just want to ask your help with something. We are really bad at remembering to do this, but if you could, leave us a positive review, leave us a comment, go over and follow us on Instagram, on YouTube. Ty does a phenomenal job with the edit of sharing video and stills of the work and the artists that we discuss. We would really like to grow this thing and would like to ask for your help in doing that. Thanks. Back to the episode.